Welcome to another edition of On the Record. I'm your host, Aaron Daniels, and I'm sitting here with Muskoge's own Teacher of the Year, Jack Reavis. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, sir.
Thanks for taking time.
Glad to be here.
This is one of my favorite guys, people. One of my favorite guys that I've met within the past 5 years, and he wears so many different hats. He's a jack of all trades, so I guess it's only fitting that your name is Jack. But we're going to start in education. You ready?
Sure.
Well, let's dive right into it. How many years have you been in education?
This makes my 21st year.
21st year. Mm-hmm. And in your 21 years, how have you seen things evolve from students then versus students now, the system then versus the system now?
Well, I think the institution of education really hasn't changed much. I think it is America's greatest social experiment, which is public education, and it's evolving, with publicly funded charter schools. Of course, there's always been private parochial schools, but seeing tax dollars go into public charter schools. The students have changed somewhat. The technology certainly has affected them. They seem disconnected to the cell phones, but they're intimately connected by them, and I call them silent herders.
Ooh.
And because they herd in packs. And about 25 years ago, business began to clamor for people to be able to work in groups, and I think they got their wish, but like anything in life, has a consequence, and it has taken away the development of the alpha leader. Because if you really look at the classes now, in the last 8 years, there's really no true leadership like you would have seen 25, 30 years ago, where there'd be multiple people that could actually lead the class. I think that affects sports, certainly, because on the phones and stuff, they'll say things or post things that they never would say to somebody eyeball to eyeball, because they would get poked in the eye.
There you go. So in a way, it cuts down on the social skills.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. And leadership skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, with you being around for that long, you're seeing things start, you're seeing things end. Not to date you at all, but I think it's great that you've been in this line of work that is not for everyone for so long. How have you, if at all, had to evolve yourself and reinvent yourself in order to stay relevant and stay effective at this job that you do?
I don't think I've reinvented or recreated myself. The human heart hasn't changed, and any student, any young adult needs attention. I'll use the word love in a proper tense of the word as an educator. And if you build those relationships with that student, and where they begin to trust you and know that you're not there to harm them and you have their best interest at heart, eventually they'll run through a brick wall for you.
Absolutely.
So I don't see that as is evolving, but any good teacher that remains loyal to that principle, that is universal. And I don't see that's been with me from the start, and it's with me right now. So as far as reinventing, I've had to learn how to adjust to the student as the technologies come into play, and deal with that. But it still comes down to the relationship between the teacher and the student, and that's the most important thing. Because I tell my students the first day of class, just like this year, if you don't learn any history from it all, learn to think for yourself. Because then you understand why you feel the way you feel and think the way you think, and then you can defend that with passion, and that gives you power. And then as you carry that into adulthood, you begin to figure out what's important for your family. And then you can protect your family with that because you understand yourself. That's the most important thing. And to me, that's universal.
Really deep concept right there, Coach. And I said this in one of my other pieces. I quoted a wise man who once said to me, these kids don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's very true.
Is that true?
That is true, sir.
And also, you're not teaching until the kids are learning. I heard that too. Is that true?
Boy, that's a hard question.
I know I threw a couple punchlines at you.
Well, then, to me, it revolves around the issue of what is learning. And do we have the capability to teach anybody anything? We can show somebody how to dribble a basketball or present, a historical concept. But until they absorb it and the connections are made internally, it's useless to them until they actually decide, well, that I might have need for that. You know, if that's learning, then, or what we label as learning, then that old saying that I think is true, that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So everybody develops at different, maturation rates. The light bulb turns on at different spots in life. So what has happened to a child, in their lifetime, where they may stay, home 3 different places every week, and we have some students like that. Others have a more stable home, and certainly the person who's more streetwise has developed coping skills that are functional in that genre. But as they move on to adult, get married, and jobs, that those coping skills become dysfunctional, and a lot of people have a hard time unlearning those to become functional in this new life. That takes a lot of courage to change. The ability to recognize that is crucial, and some, like I said, some don't do that. So, but if they keep seeking, I think, truth and self-reflection, that light bulb turns off, then I think God puts in place those people who are there to direct that person at that point in their life.
When they're ready.
When they're ready, yeah.
Would you agree with the statement that there is an all-purpose approach to teaching or learning, or is that false?
In developing the human being, I think there's general strategies that would be universal, all-purpose, as you say. In teaching subject material, people come to you with different abilities and learning styles, and a good teacher can recognize, probably within 2 to 3 weeks, how to best approach a student, whether it be auditory or kinesthetic, how they learn, and then kind of move that way with them. But with the class sizes like this year, because of the state funding, that's getting more difficult, because the more students you have in your classroom, the less time you really have to kind of focus on that. And it really should be addressed.
Because that area that you're talking about has more to do with building relationships.
Yes, yeah, where relationships where they learn in their mode.
Okay. Now, we touched lightly on the fact that you are the Teacher of the Year for the second time, am I right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people look at the finished product and get to say, wow, this must be a heck of a guy, which you are, since I happen to have the pleasure to know you personally. But people on the outside looking in may not know about the dark days. And what I mean is, have you ever had a feeling where you thought, you know what, maybe I'm not in the right line of work. Maybe this isn't for me. Have you ever gotten so, I don't want to say low, but maybe so frustrated to where you almost wanted to step away?
No, not to step away. Like I said earlier, excuse me, the institution that has developed around teaching is very archaic. It's very slow. Like any institution in the States, it doesn't change very rapidly. And what happens downtown on the money end is a business,
right,
with our taxpayer money, and it needs to be, frugally looked after. But what happens in the classroom is totally different. Now, it's all part of the wheel, and for the wheel to move properly, everything has to be in balance. But any part of the wheel that's missing, and that wheel doesn't roll, it doesn't move. So it all has to work together. And the times that I've been most frustrated is when the state legislature or administration have made it more difficult actually to do your job in the classroom for reasons that really don't have anything to do with what happens there. That make it more difficult. Now issues of safety are different, I think, but actual professional development is necessary, and it's something that kind of gets mundane and routine, and I've attended things that not good, but if you're going to commit to them, they need to be, something that where you get benefit out of. And of course, the paperwork has increased tremendously.
Right.
The involvement in lesson plans, and good lesson plans take time. And any good teacher should develop good lesson plans, because that's your roadmap. That's just your general guide. It's like you go on vacation, you got your interstate, then you see a little interesting shop over here that says there's good chicken fried steak down there 20 miles, and you can veer off over there.
One of my favorite dishes, man.
There you go. And then you get back on the main highway. In other words, you should have the freedom to do what you need to do when you see fit, and that's based individually on each classroom too, though, because I've got a full schedule this year, and each class is different, and it's okay. And a good administrator will recognize that, because they know if somebody's teaching or not. And as long as you're doing your job, it's still a bad thing for a teacher to see a principal kind of come into their classroom.
Yeah. There's something about that feeling.
Yeah,
unsettling.
Yeah, it's still, I'm in trouble. And if the administrator is watching this, don't take that personally.
No, yeah, please. You know you got a job to do.
But the legal end of it, I think, gets in our way. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the most frustrated I've been, where I really don't know if I want to do this because of that, not anything that's gone on in the classroom between the students.
You're a history teacher, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Talk about how you teach the content. Do you work from front to back, or from back to front, or do you bounce around?
I currently teach history from the present and go back into the past. So I guess back to front.
Okay.
And the state test, the what I call the EIO test.
Little nursery rhyme?
Yes. 53% of the exam comes from after 1945, after World War II. Right. So I cover from August to December the bulk of the exam. But also I start basically with the election of President Obama and the financial crisis and work my way back through. But also it's easier for students to understand because they grew up with that. And in our current students, mine are roughly 17 to 18, we've been involved in an active war, declared war for over half their life, 10 years. And people forget that.
Wow.
They've never seen politicians work together. You've always had this side, and you don't compromise because you betray your loyalties. And that affects how they interact. First of all, their voting patterns, their loyalty to the country, because all they've known is this conflict. When I grew up, Vietnam was a big issue, and I didn't have to go to Vietnam. I would have went. I'm very grateful to God I didn't have to go, because it would have changed my life. But Vietnam still has a huge shadow on what we do now. I think it helped contribute to limiting our engagement in Iraq, to 10 years. Which is a good thing, and I'm not criticizing the cause of the war in that nature, but I think without Vietnam, we might still be actively engaged there in a drawn-out type situation. But anyway, the newer events are easier to hook students' mind into because they know of them than some obscure fact that happened 125 years ago. Now, when that's in place, as I continue to work back through the 70s, President Reagan, President Carter, the events of Nixon and Vietnam, and you get to the 1950s, it is linear, but I don't think history is linear. It's my job to put dots in my students' minds and then weave this really nice, beautiful mosaic carpet together, because it's like Van Gogh's Starry, Starry Night. What is over here, it affects over here, and it's all swirled together, and it's not just one isolated event, and it's all hooked together. And by the time I get back to imperialism, 1900 or so, I can connect this dot here with this and this because they've already learned it back here. So it makes it easier to understand why we did this here, or the origins of it, because they already know the end results of it.
Wow.
A lot easier to do that.
We're back. I'm sitting here with Muskogee's own Teacher of the Year, Jack Reavis. Now we're getting ready to talk about sports a little bit. You are a coach for how many different sports at this time?
Volleyball and basketball. Women's basketball. I don't like to call it girls. It's women's basketball.
Oh, well, check it out. Well, you young women, you got some shoes to fill. Got to live up to this title that Coach Reavis is giving you. Are there any differences as far as the approach that you have to take toward communicating with the volleyball girls than the basketball girls, or is it the same? Because the age is the same.
You're going to put me on the spot on this one. The yes and no.
Okay.
The motivation, I think, starts with the relationships.
Right.
And at least my experience with female athletes, they will carry a grudge, I think, longer than a male athlete, where two males may not like each other, but they will work together to get that W.
Right. Right.
Pretty unselfishly.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think female players will, and I'll be gentle with this, will hesitate first to play unselfishly.
Right.
If there's conflict, and particularly if there's a third party involved.
There you go. I back you on that.
On the romantic part of it, it's a little bit deeper, I think, with the girl, more personal, I guess, a female than a male, even though it may affect the same area, but because they're different genders. And so they are technically different, and it does need to be handled different, I think, by a coach who understands that difference. But a true athlete, regardless of the gender, if they really have the heart of an athlete, they transcend that drama.
Gotcha.
And go for the win, or at least as long as they're competitive and lay it all out on the court or whatever their venue is, they know they've tried their best, and if they get beat, they get beat.
Right.
But at least they're not going to blame it on, well, I was mad at her or just whatever. They know they went actually and competed.
It gets down to business.
Exactly. Yes.
All
sir.
right. All right.
Yeah.
Now update us on volleyball right now. What's happening with the Muskogee Lady Roughers volleyball team? How are you guys right now, and what's to come?
Oh, I'm excited for this year. I do the transportation for volleyball and basketball both, and I actually have a bus already on order for the state tournament.
There you go. That's called thinking ahead.
Yes.
And trying to talk something into existence, right?
I didn't do that last year, to be honest with you. But this year, because of some of the changes in the league or the conference makeup, the girls had the talent to do it. We beat Union a week ago at home here, and which wasn't a fluke.
Right.
They came to play, we came to play, and we came out on top. It was a great win for our program.
Great feeling.
Yes, and as you well know, that's kind of a milestone for the volleyball program.
Mm-hmm.
And we play Bigsby next Tuesday night, which we took them 2-0, and they came back and they won the game, but our girls competed. And of course, the Bigsby coach she's a good coach and knows how to get the most out of her players. But I think Coach Hammer is I've coached with him several years now, and I think he's grown as a coach, as a human being, where he's figured out ways to get his players motivated and ready for the games that perhaps it's just developed over the years. I won't say it was wrong or bad there, but as any coach, he's always learning new techniques and how to do things that will make his players better.
Right.
Been to several good camps over the summer. Kept his girls involved, and right now we're kind of dinged up a bit, but I think like in our basketball team business, if you play quality teams, you grow your program.
There you go.
And the teams that we've played so far, this has been the toughest schedule at the beginning of the year. Generally, we finish with these teams at the end, and we've held our own. So I'm very excited about the strong possibility of making the state tournament this year.
And you have a daughter that plays volleyball as well.
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh yeah. Now you know where I'm going now. Now I've always been told, and I've seen this a little bit whenever I was playing. But the main thing was the statement that was told to me by somebody way back when. They say, whenever parents coach their own, one of two things happen: either they're too hard on them, or they're not hard enough on them. Where would you say you fall in that estimation?
Probably in the middle, with a little bit of the needle going to too hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that because you know she has so much more she can give, and that's your baby, and you want her to do the best?
To always to try your best. And then sometimes your best is shanking a ball off in the stands, 10 feet back behind the out-of-bounds line. And
That's the way it goes.
And that's just part of competition, But being her senior year, I have slowed down and just watched her play, on the court. Watch her move, watch her smile, how she got her hair done, her interaction with her colleagues on the floor, and to try to build in some memories after she's gone, because this time next year she'll be in college,
Right.
and I won't see her every day. So I'm trying to build some memories of her, just the small things that she doesn't notice I'm watching, as a parent and as a coach, but also the legacy I think that Madison will leave behind, because she's has a good heart, very very honest, tries to be kind to everybody, and I think she's a good example of what a good competitor should be. Of course, she kind of whines and about things and that, and any head coach I think gets hormonal at times, and then they should.
With the sweet, right?
Yeah. But I've always tried to tell Madison, and also the players too, that and this involves Coach Eddie Sutton. He could probably rip the top off of a metal can sometimes with his words, but if you listen to the head coach of what they're saying to you and not how they're delivering it to you, there's a difference.
Big difference.
They could be ranting and raving, but they're still trying to tell you what to do to correct the situation, and unless something else is not right, but that's a different issue. But if you listen to what they're trying to tell you, you should be okay. You should be able to get beyond the tone of the voice.
There you go. Now, whenever it is time to have that coaching moment with your daughter, where it's not father-daughter, it's coach-player, how receptive is she to your tutelage?
She's good. The open mind there, because she wants to win.
There you go.
And that changes the tone of the daughter just going into kind of rebellious mode, because she wants to win. And that she's very receptive to coaching.
There you go. That trumps all.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then you've been at this for a long time. I was talking to Coach Rowland not too long ago, and he told me that you two go way back from coaching football at the junior high. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Coaching basketball for several years, and with you coaching volleyball now. When and where did Coach Reavis start his coaching career in any sport?
9th grade boys basketball here at Muskogee High School.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. What year was that, if you care to share?
I had more hair. The 95 or 6, somewhere in there.
Okay.
I had Coach Paul Muser came and asked me out of my classroom. He needed a coach, and I didn't go to school to become a coach. I went to school to become a teacher, and hopefully I could maybe bend the future a little bit with this, if I was lucky.
There you go.
And he said, "I know you're a good teacher, and I need a 9th grade boys basketball coach. And if you're a good teacher, I know you make a good coach." And I said, he asked me if I would consider coaching for him. And I said, well, I need to run this, by my wife first, because Laura and I we're a team, and I married up, believe me, so I respect her opinion deeply. And I came back and told him yes, and that's how it started.
It's been rocking and rolling since then.
I actually had coached Josh Berry when he was in played basketball.
Yeah.
Berry.
For those of you who don't know, that's the head boys basketball coach at Muskogee High School.
And Darnell Henson, Coach Darnell Henson also. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now have you been coaching every single year since then?
There was a period in there about 10 years ago where I got out of it, I think for a year, maybe 2 years, and just kind of needed a break. And then came back on with Miss Hillman, I believe, when she became head basketball coach.
Okay.
That's been 15 years ago, I guess. Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I like how you patched that up.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
Okay, okay.
But then Coach Roll and I, they moved us out to West,
Right.
and then we coached football out there. And I will say this, that he and I never lost a city championship to AR.
Shots fired.
Yeah, shots fired. Yeah.
he still brings that up from time to time.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, yeah.
Because back then it was a true rivalry, and then of course they put the schools together to try to make them work together. But I think Muskogee lost a little bit of history there because we had some good times out there.
There you go.
Good times.
You and Coach Rowland. I'm going there, Coach. Now, you two have vastly different personalities, but in some areas y'all are the same. Talk about that friendship. How unique is that dynamic between the two of you?
Oh, Coach, I think the basis is growing up in the time period in which we did. Because he went to the old manual training school, which was the segregated school here in Muskogee at the time period. And in our experience with racism, segregation, and in a dynamic time period in the 50s and 60s where that began to be untied. And we share a lot of feelings from different experiences, involving that. He and I talk kind of our own language when it comes to that, and like he and I both, that we both have great hope that our world, continues to evolve in a more peaceful manner, and the built institutions that still dabble with that, particularly, we're in Little Dixie, in Oklahoma, and it's not a perfect world, but I think we both strive to try to make it a better world. He and I both do, in our own ways, which are different at times.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays we probably argue and spat like brothers and sisters do more than we get along, but push come to shove, I'm loyal to him because he is my head coach.
And more important than that, he's a friend of yours.
Yes, sir. The friendship transcends that. Because he could ask me for anything, and if I was capable of helping, I wouldn't even hesitate.
It's been an honor to serve at the side of both of you, by the way, too. We'll be right back after this.